Our mind is not broken. It is simply carrying the weight of unhealed thoughts, old patterns, and stories you were never meant to keep. But there is something so simple, so profoundly powerful, that can begin to clear that space: words. The words you speak to yourself daily shape the way you feel, think, and live. They either pollute your mental state or cleanse it. Imagine for a moment that your thoughts are like water. If you've been pouring in criticism, fear, and judgment, it's no wonder the water feels cloudy. But the moment you introduce compassion, forgiveness, love, the water begins to clear. It's not magic. It's the mind responding to truth. Simple words like I am willing, I release, I forgive, and I choose peace begin to soften the hardness of self-blame. They create space between you and the clutter. These words don't ignore pain, they acknowledge it and then gently guide you forward. They remind you that your mind is a place where healing is possible. When you say, I let go, you aren't erasing the past, you're freeing yourself from the emotional grip it has on your present. When you whisper, I am safe, you are calming your nervous system and sending a message of comfort to every part of you that's been on high alert. The words you speak silently to yourself are the most powerful ones. When you wake up and say, today, I choose clarity, your day begins with direction. When you feel overwhelmed and repeat, I trust the process, you remind yourself that you are not alone. Words are not weak, they are intentional choices that cleanse your energy. We were never taught that speaking gently to ourselves is essential, but it is. Kindness in language rewires the brain. It tells your inner critic to rest. It helps you build a space in your mind that feels safe to exist in. And when your mind feels safe, your heart begins to heal. Mental clarity doesn't always come from solving everything. It often comes from surrendering, from saying, I don't have to know it all. I'm allowed to be learning. These small phrases, when repeated with care, begin to wash away years of inner chaos. So when you feel clouded, anxious, or unsure, return to the basics. Return to breathe, return to truth, and then speak these words with intention. I forgive, I release, I am learning, I am enough, I choose peace. These are not just words, they are mental medicine. The mind is a garden and thoughts are its seeds. Every day we are planting something, whether consciously or unconsciously. What you choose to think, repeat, and believe forms the emotional atmosphere you live in. If your thoughts are filled with harshness, judgment, or fear, your inner world begins to reflect that chaos. But if your thoughts are gentle, affirming, and kind, your emotional state begins to soften, and mental clarity begins to return. We often forget that we are the thinkers of our thoughts, not the thoughts themselves. That means we are not powerless. We are not trapped in mental fog or emotional heaviness forever. We can begin to choose again. We can gently interrupt a negative thought with a new one. We can say, I'm learning, or this moment is new, instead of I always mess things up. This choice, though simple, shifts the entire energy within. Clarity doesn't come from trying to control everything. It comes from releasing what no longer needs to be carried. So many people carry around repetitive, harmful beliefs about themselves. Old stories passed down from childhood, society, or trauma. These thoughts form a mental haze, and like a window smeared with dirt, they blur how we see the world and ourselves. But thoughts can be cleaned, gently, lovingly, one at a time. When we begin to speak to ourselves with care, we are not pretending everything is perfect. We are simply choosing a different lens, one that invites peace instead of panic. When your thoughts are rooted in love and not fear, your emotional state stabilizes. You begin to feel safer in your body, calmer in your responses, and more present in your daily life. Mental clarity becomes a byproduct of this inner kindness. We often look outside ourselves for peace, through other people, through circumstances, through distractions. But clarity is an inside job. You could be in a quiet room and still feel mentally stormy if your thoughts are spiraling. And yet, you could be in the middle of a challenge and feel grounded if your thoughts are centered in truth and compassion. This is the power you have to direct your inner dialogue toward healing. One of the simplest yet most powerful shifts you can make is to pause and ask, is this thought helping me or hurting me? That one question can break the cycle, and from there, you can replace it with something softer. I'm doing my best, or I allow myself to move forward. These phrases act like cleansing water for the mind. They don't erase the pain, but they begin to wash away the tightness it leaves behind. Your emotional well-being is not separate from your thinking patterns. They are deeply connected. When your thoughts are kind, your emotions become lighter. When your thoughts are grounded, your nervous system relaxes. That's why changing how you think, one small phrase at a time, is one of the most loving acts of healing you can offer yourself. It requires no money, no noise, no audience, just presence. The moment you realize that your thoughts are shaping your reality, you begin to reclaim your peace. You begin to see that the healing you seek isn't always in doing more, but in thinking differently. With awareness, with love, with a willingness to believe that peace is possible, even here, even now. Words are not just sounds or symbols. They are instruments. They have energy. They have intention. The words you speak to yourself each day shape the environment you live in mentally and emotionally. When you speak words of fear, criticism, or doubt, you are slowly adding more weight to the mind. It becomes cluttered, foggy, and heavy. But when you speak words of love, peace, forgiveness, and gentleness, you clear the mind like sunlight breaking through a cloudy sky. Think of your inner world as a space, your sacred mental home. Every thought, every sentence, every affirmation you repeat becomes part of the decor. Some words make the space feel warm, clean, and safe. Others pile up like emotional clutter, leaving little room for calm. Most people don't even realize how many thoughts they've let in without question. But once you begin to observe, you realize you have the power to choose different words, words that heal instead of harm. Every time you say, I can't, I'm not enough, or I always fail, you are using your words to reinforce a version of yourself that doesn't reflect your truth. But when you say, I'm growing, I'm willing to change, or I trust myself, you begin to shift the emotional energy of your mind. These are not just empty phrases. They are tools of mental hygiene. They help sweep away layers of self-doubt and reveal the strength and peace that already live inside you. Just as we clean our homes, bodies, or workspaces, our minds also need cleansing. And we don't do it by force or pressure. We do it with softness. Gentle words act like warm water washing over old pain. Even saying something as simple as I'm safe now can begin to soothe a part of your mind that's been on high alert for years. That sentence becomes a balm, a comfort, a shift in vibration. And with repetition, it becomes truth. The beauty of using words as tools is that they're always available. Even in a chaotic environment, even during an emotional storm, you can close your eyes, take a breath, and repeat something healing. I choose peace. I let go. I forgive. I'm learning. These words don't erase your struggles, but they help you carry them differently. They lighten your mental load. They give you back your sense of power, even when things feel uncertain. We often think clarity requires solutions or control, but sometimes it just requires a kinder sentence. It requires asking yourself, what would I say to someone I love who feels like I do right now? Then speak those words to you. Speak them until they feel familiar. Speak them until the harshness begins to fade. That's how we retrain the mind, not through force, but through the frequency of loving repetition. There is a sacred intelligence in how the body and mind respond to words. When you say something kind, your breath softens, your shoulders relax, your heart rate begins to settle. These aren't coincidences. They're signs that your body understands the language of healing. It's waiting for you to choose it. And your words are how you begin. You don't need the perfect phrase. You only need a sincere one, something you can repeat when the mind becomes cluttered or overwhelmed, something that reminds you that you are safe, that you are growing, and that you are allowed to feel peace. These words become your tools, your companions, your daily invitation to clear the mind and come home to yourself.